Welcome to By Faith with Susie and Mike. This program is about regular people who've activated their faith and have done great things for the kingdom of God. When we move, God moves with us. What is God calling you to do today? By faith, obey His voice and enjoy the ride as He does things you could never imagine. Now here's your hosts, Susie and Mike.
Welcome to another edition of By Faith with Susie and Mike. Can't wait to tell you about the story of Leon, who was in line at the Dallas Convention Center, and he was one of those who was homeless and impoverished, and we're going to hear his story today. Now he is a cybersecurity expert. He's got a master's degree, and he's a huge donor helping Operation Care International with $30,000 of rentals for chairs and all different things at the Dallas Convention Center. Tell us about Leon.
Well, let me tell you how I met Leon. I was asking the Lord, I said, Lord, would you please show me fruit of our labor? I mean, just a person. Because not a lot of people come back and say thank you to us. So I needed to be encouraged. So one day I went to a church meeting at 8:30 in the evening. And it was about a meeting for helping impoverished people in Dallas. And 8:30, I was sitting at the top, you know. I think I was the only Asian person on that meeting, and full of people. And then, before you knew it, somebody sat next. There was a chair next to me, and then there was another guy here. He sat on that chair. And then he asked me, he said, could I give you a hug? I said, what? I'm leery if a person would just tell me, could I give you a hug? For no reason. And then I said, what for? And then he said, well, I just want to say thank you because I've been going to your event at Dallas Convention Center. So he's going to tell you his story.
So Leon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about this night that you, by the way, you were in one of the shelters and you had to leave because you had gotten ill, correct? It was a cold night and somebody told you about this event and you ended up at the convention center.
Yeah. It was below freezing. And of course, now this is before, the COVID pandemic that we're going through now. So hugging was still available. I wouldn't say that. But I got sick because homeless people, they have all kind of issues because they're homeless. They can't bathe. They can't change their clothes. So I had come to Dallas from Atlanta to try to get out of homelessness. There are homeless people all over the country, thousands. And so someone told me they had an opportunity for me in Dallas. So I decided to come here. And of course, the first place I had to go was a homeless shelter because when things didn't work out, well, I had to do something. So everybody was talking about Operation Care and going to the convention center. So for 2 or 3 years, I would go there, and Susie's people, it was just great. You got out of the cold, you got new shoes, new coats, feet washed, got a nice meal. People came up to you and said, we hope you're successful to get yourself out of homelessness. It's a great encourager to help you, because getting out of homelessness is a fight. There's not a lot of resources. There's not a lot of assistance. And so you have to be kind of determined and you have to be kind of lucky. And then you have to have people like Susie in Operation Care who fill in the gaps. And so that was what, 4 years ago?
Okay, Leon, how did you see God's love in our event?
Well, the greatest thing, one of the greatest things, let me put it like this, was the foot washing. The foot washing is somewhat, wow. These people are washing my feet. And, in the Bible, Jesus washed feet.
Yes.
So that's a perfect example of God, Jesus, actually doing something that you can actually feel, not just, a conversation with a guy standing on a pulpit 150 feet away and you need a coat or you need some shoes. So what God does through Susie is she actually gives you the movement, so you can have something that when you leave there, you feel better about yourself.
So let's talk about feeling better about yourself. I've heard people say that we want to treat people with dignity. Did you feel like you were being treated with dignity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was exactly the feeling that you get. You feel like you're somebody, or you feel like you're capable of being somebody. It gives you the another motivation, because when you see a lot of people interact with homeless people, it's like usually they think that you're just, lazy, unproductive. But a lot of homeless people just don't have options. Like my pastor says, sometimes you can't criticize people's choices when you don't know their options.
You know, I could understand how homeless people feel in some way, because remember, I live in the street as a homeless person. Because the Lord told me to be a homeless for one day in Dallas, Texas. And that really opened my eyes greatly, because I remembered following the homeless teenagers, and we would be walking in the street and nobody was looking us direct in the eyes. Like we were just not there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and then I could remember the homeless just keep on walking with no purpose. And so having the event, Operation Care event, giving this event, a birthday party for Jesus, where we gather all resources of Dallas, Texas, different ministries, so we could show the love of Christ, that these are people that are not, they are there, they are not invisible, they are there, they are human beings that needed love. So if you could just even touch them or just ask them, how can I pray for you? So that's what we do at the convention center, and we wash feet. That's what Leon said. That's the most touching thing that happened there. So did our event kind of give you hope and encourage your heart, and you found hope there because of the kindness of people that were shown to you?
Every year. It just wasn't a one-time thing. I went there 2 or 3 years in a row, because when you're homeless, you don't get the opportunities to move around, to move up in society. It's easier after you're homeless or before you're homeless. But once you get in that situation, as many people will be experiencing now because of this pandemic and this economic collapse, it's not as easy as you would think, or it's not, well, it's no big deal. If I was homeless, I'd be out of homelessness the next day. It's not that simple. And what Susie and Operation Care does, Jesus says, hey, go out here and feed my sheep. It's a process where you actually get something tangible. Like I said before, not a lot of words. People can preach to you all the time, but if you're hungry, you want something to eat. If your feet are hurting, you want your feet washed.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're cold, you need a coat.
If you're cold, you need a coat.
Yeah. So Leon, you actually pulled yourself out of this. It's our prayer that everybody that comes through the convention center would do what's happened to you. And I know there's many challenges. Let's talk about how you went from being a homeless person that came through the convention center to today, which is incredible. You're a cybersecurity expert. You've got a degree. You actually help with our event with the city. How did you do it, Leon?
Well, education was my first path out. I re-enrolled in college, and now people are the educational system is looking for people that make academic progress. When I was younger, we had to desegregate. So, we don't want to know if we want you to have an education now. But now, if you can pass and make academic progress, they're glad to see you. So I would take my student loan and Pell Grant refunds, and I would go and try to find places to stay until I eventually was able to get into a more permanent type of housing. And once you get more permanent housing, then you can really advance educationally. And that's one method. Some people, they get jobs. Once they get that job, that first 2-week, 3-week check, they can go get an apartment. Some people, they go to their relatives, but Operation Care gives you an opportunity to reconnect
Yes.
with some of the services that they provide. Susie can tell you the story about people that come to her and they say, oh, I have a relative in Detroit or Chicago, and Susie and them will call them up and they say, oh, sure, and then they'll give them a bus ticket. So Operation Care really helps homeless people a lot more than people who frankly don't understand what it's like because they've never had that circumstance.
Well, Operation Care is very grateful to you, Leon. And I remember Bruce and you, a few years ago, went to the city of Dallas to ask for help with our chairs and tables that we needed at the convention center, because every year we serve a massive number of people, from
Yes.
6,000 to 15,000 homeless and poor. And one year you heard that we needed the help of the city. So what did you do? I think you tell the story about how you and Bruce went to the mayor's office.
I was at one of your galas, and the appeal for funds went out, And so I said, well, since it's at a city-owned facility, let's see if we can get the city to donate something because it's for homelessness. And so Bruce Carter and I, we went down to City Hall, and Bruce, with his fantastic public relations capabilities, and me with I'm gonna back you up the best way I can. The city decided that they liked the idea, and so they extended that discount to Susie. And I wish the city would just donate completely the facility, because that would be more money that she could spend on coats and shoes and food and other stuff like that. So I'm hoping that someone that can, or someone in the audience, will ask the city to donate that facility to Susie completely so she can use those funds for other purposes and help the homeless.
Okay, well, Leon, we're actually out of time, but I want you to just briefly thank the supporters of Operation Care, because you are where you are today because people give, because people volunteer, because people serve. Just talk to the camera for a few seconds. Thank them for how they've really transformed your life.
Yes, thank you. Because without you, there are people like me and others who would still be homeless. And you don't just have to give money. You can volunteer. You can give donations of clothes, shoes. You can talk to other people who have access to resources. Many ways are available for you to help Operation Care. So if you don't know how to help Operation Care, just give us a call. Give Susie a call, and the office will be glad to show you how you can help.
Well said, Leon. We'll be right back.
This is tremendous of the impact that this organization and this event have in the community. Just the lives that have come through the door and have been touched. And love. Time you walk through the front door, you feel the love, you feel welcomed. There's no phoniness. You can tell that everyone is on one accord of really serving, being the hands and the feet of God. You've got women and men that have served in war, served in other countries, and when they come back to the United States, they're forgotten. And now you have opportunity such as this event, Operation Care, that's catering to veterans. I've never seen so much love when the veterans come in and you've got the sword salute and they come and they're honored that way for their life of service. While we were touring the area, I saw a gentleman in a wheelchair, and there was another person who was washing his feet, but part of his foot was partially gone. And I watched this man just tenderly just wash this other man's foot, and I'm like, he has no toes. And I said, God, I complain about my feet when my feet is tired, and he has no toes. And just for someone to take time out to wash somebody else's feet, that is powerful.
Welcome back to By Faith with Susie and Mike. You know, Susie, our next guest, this is an incredible story. When you think about decorating 500,000 square feet of the convention center, that's a daunting task. So our next guest, Mary Musgrave, good friend of the ministry, we're going to hear how God called her to do this, and we're going to talk about how God actually tugged on your heart and called you to decorate this. But the idea of decorating that convention center, wow. Susie, how do you know Mary?
Well, I met Mary during our Bible study at Smokies, and I asked her to pray because we didn't have any decorator. And that's the specific request when I went to see her was, could you please pray that God would provide someone that would help with the decoration? And guess what? She's going to tell you more.
Well, Mary, let's start right there. So first off, how did you and Susie Jennings intersect? How did you guys come to meet each other?
Well, like she said, we met at Smoky John's Barbecue, a Bible study that was held there on Tuesdays. And we had met the previous year, and my husband and I decided to volunteer at the event. So we went, and we happened to go very early when it wasn't even open yet to help set up. And so when we did, the woman that was trying to help decorate things was having a hard time because she didn't really have very many volunteers to help her. So I was trying to help her as much as I could, and then we volunteered, and then then we went on, from there that year. And so then the following year, she was at Smoky John's again, and I said, how are things going? And she said, oh, it's going okay, but would you be in prayer for someone to step in, because we did have a woman who's been hospitalized who was going to take it over and doesn't look like she'll get out before Christmas. And I said, okay, I'll be sure and pray for that. Well, I'm not necessarily a natural decorator, but so I was praying about it one morning after that, and it was as if the Lord just was tapping me on the shoulder. And at first I was like, wait a minute, that's not me. And so I prayed again. I said, Lord, bring her someone. And he was saying, well, you are that someone. Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I wanted to say, no, not me, like you in your book. So, but I went back to her the next week, and I said, look, I'll do what I can to help you, but I don't know what I can do, but I'll, try to help you step in this year, just that year. And so, so I stepped in, and she said, well, there's a warehouse where you have some supplies. You have your decorations and supplies. So I went to the warehouse that following week, and I walked in, and I saw the biggest mess I'd ever seen in my life of just decorations everywhere, dumped in boxes, just very disorganized. And thinking back on the lady that had been, helping the year before, I knew it was very minimal crowd that had helped probably put it back together. So at that point, it dawned on me why God called me to do it, because my profession was going out. I'd worked for the Container Store, so I was going out in people's homes and help them organize things. So that's where it started, and I knew God had called me to help it get organized for just that year.
Yeah.
So how long was that now? How many years?
I
Almost
totally
10?
have honestly lost count, but it's been almost a decade. So anyway.
Wow. So God knew that you were gifted in organization.
Right.
But the idea of 3 weeks before, and by the way, this was 3 weeks before the event,
Right.
of you, God saying, I want you not just to be a part of it, but to lead it.
Right.
Tell me about that faith journey. Our show is about by faith,
Right.
and it's about, hearing, believing, and then moving. So
Right.
you had to move.
Right.
What was that like?
Well, I'm not the out there leader type. I'm the behind the scenes, help as much as you need. I'm there behind the scenes helping. So to be the chairperson and to be out there as the leader, I was very nervous about that. It wasn't my gift, at least I didn't think so. And so that was one thing. And then the second thing was, how am I going to get enough people to help me pull this apart and get it somewhat organized before we go? And as God would have it, he provided a work day up at the warehouse for another section of the preparation for the event. But they had plenty of people that showed up that day. And she said, well, there's a youth group that showed up. And I call them my angels, because literally they came over. She gave me probably 10 youth, which is what I needed, because I needed a lot of muscle and a lot of quick organization. So they all jumped in and they helped me pull apart those boxes and get them all in bins and get it, together to get organized prior to the event, which was just a godsend for sure.
Well, by the way, Mary, the Lord has given us the most amazing, hardworking. Mary is like the always the last person to leave whatever event we have, like our gala. My goodness, she will be the last person to leave that gala. How many years we have been doing galas, and she had been volunteering, so the Lord knew exactly what he was doing. So when he pat her on the shoulder like, you do it, the Lord knows exactly that it's Mary, because she could organize, hardworking. And not only that, they are a partner to the ministry. Her husband, AC, both of them had been such an incredible gift to the ministry. So they just not talk. They talk, they walk the talk, and then they give their talent, treasure, and their time.
Yeah, Mary, let me ask you about when God sort of tapped you on the shoulder and said, I want you to do it. When that happens, when you hear from God and God is prompting you to do that, tell us about sort of what went through your mind, because you knew, by the way, the idea, and I still want to talk about this, how do you even pull this off? 500,000 square feet. I mean, it's an incredible thing. I've seen it when you guys are there days before setting it up. But talk to me about that conversation with God when he first said, I want you to do this.
Well, I thought he was talking to the wrong person. And so I kind of pushed back, and I really didn't think he was really meaning me, because that's, again, the decorating part, I'm okay, but it's not my natural gift. And so I was just, sure, surely that's not what you mean, Lord. And so I just, kept, the second time he prompted me, I knew that I needed to at least volunteer. Just at least kind of get in there and help her get it off the ground this year. So I certainly didn't know, and as I'm sure has been said many times on this program, once Susie snags you
in your eyes.
she does not let you go.
Right.
And so, and because, each year just kind of built on each other, and you were asking about the 500,000 square feet, the first year it wasn't, in my view, very pretty, but it was up, and it was standing up, which had kind of been the year before almost not standing up. But and so the next year, each year I wanted to build, and the bar being kind of low, it just crept up over the years. And each year also we got better and better at our media to ask for volunteers at the different churches and stuff. And as that broadened, I started to know how many people I needed to help me.
How many volunteers does it take?
Honestly, it would probably be a good 100 at least people that filter in and out and in and out. I have a core group of probably about 10 that are kind of there a lot of the time. They kind of filter in a little bit, but they're kind of at the core times. So it takes a good 100 plus people to, touch it at some point during those 3 days that we set up.
Neat.
And then there's the takedown too. So we need lots of volunteers, everybody.
So how does Operation Care ministers to you? What did you learn, or why are you in AC supporting Operation Care?
Well, we just, as we all do every day on the streets, you see someone who's, and we've been so blessed and so fortunate, and we can't keep that to ourselves. That's not what God calls us to do. He always calls us to share and to take care of the orphan, the widow, the homeless, various people. So we're called by the Lord to just turn that around and be able to bless. We've been blessed to be a blessing. So we can't just keep that to ourselves. It's like, hiding something under a bushel. You don't want to do that, or not as followers of Christ. I don't believe that's the way he calls me to be. So, and I don't believe it's the way he calls all of us to be. So our time, treasure, and talents are what we have to share. And if we have them, then it's our obligation, in my opinion, to share them. Well, it's actually our blessing to be able to share with others. So.
You have been you and AC have been such an incredible support to Operation Care, and we are so grateful to the Lord for your partnership.
Well, you're very welcome, and we're very blessed. And And your testimony was very inspiring to us as well, and how you continue overall to just walk by faith, and
Yes.
that's been an inspiring thing for us as well. And so, you know, we love being a part of that.
Thank you.
So, Mary, you've been doing this now for almost 10 years. What did God teach you now that you can reflect back from the time that He sort of tapped on your shoulder and said, I want you to lead it? Now you can fast forward 8 years. What has God taught you? What have you seen in your own heart? What has been sort of the spiritual lesson of you taking this step of faith?
Well, I think the biggest lesson is that it's a big task, but He's a big God.
Amen.
And each year He's provided just the right amount of people to get things done. I mean, literally by the skin of our teeth. But it's been just exactly every step of the way, like the kids coming that time I needed someone so badly, and I didn't know I needed it, you know, but God knew I needed it. And so I would have had to call every friend I had, you know, get down here, and, you know, but He provided it at that time, and that was such a blessing. And then just on and on and on, He's provided over the years, and people have donated decorations, and I mean, you know, along the way that we get them from malls, I mean, which is great because those are big decorations that we need. I mean, we had a mall just call us out of the blue, called Ron Batts out of the blue and said, hey, would you guys like any of these decorations? And we're like, yes, because they're really big and we need big stuff.
We're actually looking right now at some of the footage in our warehouse, and it shows all of the decorations. So you take the trees, you wrap them back up, and then you use them again. So you have a pretty well-oiled machine.
Right. Yeah. Over time, that's every year God is, I mean, even just the way the trees are wrapped, that was something that came from God one year, because I was struggling with it, and they were getting damaged as they would be transported, because they're very difficult to transport as they are. And so we that sort of came from God one year too, as to how to best do that. So
Well, just to remind us all, the CEO of Operation Care is Jesus.
absolutely.
Oh, where
So
is
he
he?
lives.
Usually on our set.
He's with us right
the
now.
pillow.
So,
She's the pillow.
yep, so he's the one that leads everything, and he's Jehovah Jireh, and that's what we have seen over and over in the life of Operation Care, and in the decoration, providing the right decoration at the right time, people, the right number of volunteers, and even at the last minute, God shows up and He shows off. That's the kind of God we serve. By faith, hear, believe, and move.
Yeah.
And that's the example is Mary.
You know, and what I get from that story and your story, Susie, is that many times God will call us to do something that's beyond us, but it is never beyond Him, because He's a God that has limitless resources. So this story is so encouraging. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on By Faith with Susie and Mike.